Hey guys, it's Lunchtime Liz. I'm coming to you today with an educational video a year ago about this topic and could find nothing. And I'm a person who literally stays on YouTube. This was the one video that I wished I had seen. And so I'm coming to you guys because I didn't see any other videos about it. Now, the topic that I'm talking about today is going to be tax offset. And if you don't know what that means basically that you owe the government for one reason or another. Most of the time it's student loans, and they will take your tax refund to pay for that debt. And I feel like this would have been very beneficial for me had I known about it. So let me just start off by telling you the reason why I'm making this video. The government was offsetting my tax refund this year and last year. Last year they took it completely, and it's kind of beneficial to my life to have that money to do things with, such as Christmas or house expenses or bills, anything. The second year came up and I was in the same predicament. But because it happened to me the year before, I did my research before I filed taxes. So what I want you to know is, first off, the first thing that I did was I called the offset information line. Now, this is a line, it's basically dedicated to the tax offset program. What you do is you dial the number, you click that you have a tax offset, or that you feel like you may have a tax offset. They ask you for your information like your social, and then they inform you on whether you have any offsets pending. And what that means is that you have something that you owe that will have an effect on your taxes, pretty much. That is the entire basis of the line. And when I dialed it, I got the information like, yes, you have an offset pending. It gives you the information actually on where it gives you their information. So fast forward, I call the number that was given to me, which was pretty much the Department of Education. The Department of Education is really hard to get a hold of, especially during tax time. Now, one thing that's beneficial with the Department of Education is if you have an offset or you owe on your loans, when you call, it's pretty much like the offset line. It's just you enter your information. They tell you, hey, yeah, you do owe us, and here's the creditor that we gave it to, and here's their number. So basically, when I got that information, I then called the creditor. Now, when I called the creditor, they gave me several options, several plans. One of them was a 3-month consolidation plan where I would pay $75 per month for 3 months, and I would officially be out of default. Now, I was like, that's a little hard. Okay, I wouldn't be able to file taxes for at least 3 months, but those would be 3 beneficial months. And I would, in the back of my mind, know there's a possibility of getting my taxes versus going ahead and filing and losing them, that it was a sacrifice that I was willing to take. Now, my communication with them, and this is another thing, was very consistent. Like I said, I would probably call them every month to make sure that they got my payment. And then I did also set it up on an automatic draft. That is, to me, the easiest way, because you don't have to remember to do it. I'm not really good at remembering to do it. And one missed payment can set you right back to month number 1. That started in February. Started in February, so I had March, April, and May. So in May, I'm kind of thinking, okay, I made my last payment. It should just be out of the clear. No, it doesn't work like that. So what happens is there is a process that the creditor has to go through. So the creditor is like, yeah, you made your final 3rd payment that was supposed to, get you into default, or get you out of default, excuse me. But we are waiting on the Department of Education to take over your case and assign it to a new creditor. So that was a waiting game, and it wasn't a very long waiting game. I was, like I said, I was in communication with them pretty much at this point every week just to catch up and see how everything was going, because until they take over your case, you're pretty much still making payments. Now, fortunately for me, I didn't have to make an additional payment to them. It did happen after the 3 months. It happened probably within like a two and a half week span. I don't know anything. We're waiting on the Department of Education, and the Department of Education was never picking up their phone. So you're calling the Department of Education. When you do get someone, they're like, well, we don't have anything right now. I don't know what you have going on. Call your creditor. And then the creditor is then referring you back to them. It was just a mess. It's a very frustrating process. Now, if you've been through this process and it was a little bit easier than this, please share it in the comments below so that other people are aware of a simpler way to do it, because it was just very frustrating for me. And for me to work 8 hours a day with a 1 hour lunch during business hours, it was really hard for me to call consistently to keep in touch with this. Like, I would spend my entire lunch doing this. And so I finally got in touch with the Department of Education, and the Department of Education informed me that on May the 3rd, my offset was officially inactive. And what that means is the Department of Education is no longer requiring the government to take your taxes. But then the Department of Education also informed me that it does take the Department of Treasury a while to actually take it out of the system so that you will not lose your taxes. I know that there's a certain date every year that you have to file taxes. And so I said, well, I'll just file for an extension. Sounds easy enough, but I had no idea how to do it. I had never done an extension before. I didn't know where to go to do an extension. I was lost. All I had to do was go to my tax preparer, which I used. I did a couple of, personal people, like in the past, people who just did it out of their home, very reasonable prices, but I kind of learned from friends that might not be the safest way. I learned that when I was dealing with my money, I needed to be very professional, and I suggest that to everybody out there. Basically, all I had to do was, there's an app for the H&R Block customers, or even if you're not a customer, you want to become a customer, there's an H&R Block app. So it has a tab or a button to just say, do you want to file an extension? You can click that. I think you have to enter something like the amount that you had last year. I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on what you have to enter. But I do know, I think I had to call and get my gross income tax for the year before. Please don't quote me on that. Like I said, I'm not a professional, and this happened a few months ago, so I'm not really sure. But the extension process is super easy. I had until October to file. That's another important step that you just cannot forget. Like, please don't forget that step. It's important. Now, if you owe taxes, you're going to have to pay those taxes upon getting an extension. So May 3rd, I was removed from the Department of Education's offset list. When I called on June 12th, so May 3rd, whole month, June 12th of 2019, I had no pending offsets according to the offset information line. I take that with a grain of salt, because I'm not gonna lie, when I first called them during tax season, they said I didn't have any, and literally the next day I had some. So please, it was I guess you could say it was very obsessive compulsive. I was calling this line all the time. But I did journal it in my diary on the 12th that I had no pending offsets. That was something that I kept in my mind, and I would call this continuously, just randomly throughout the day. It's not a time thing. It's open 24 hours a day. Because I had got clearance from the Department of Education that said, you're out of the offset with us, and it had been, at this point, a month, because it was June the 12th, that I didn't have any. And then now we're at June the 20th. So it had almost been 2 months, which is a really long process. If you look at it, and I'm realizing that that was almost a 2-month gap between that information. And I had already talked to FedLoan, which was my new creditor, and they insured me. They had set up a plan. I was in communication with them on what my taxes, what plans I would be doing. I was figuring that out with them. And then I also was applying for an income-based plan, which would be $0 a month. Now that sounds sketchy. I don't know much about that. But at that time, I had been in communication with them. I knew I was in their system. I knew I was cleared with the Department of Education. I was checking this offset line repetitively, and I had no pending offsets. But I pushed the button on June 20th. It was very, very hard for me. It was very stressful because after I sent that in to the IRS, it was a waiting game. And it was a waiting game that would either determine what I would do for the rest of my summer, or it would completely crush me emotionally. So either one was a big deal to me. I mean, I had heard people after they had gotten their taxes taken on, fighting to get them back, but I didn't want to wait until they took my taxes. Hi guys, so I wanted to come to you pretty quickly, or just quickly, to let you know kind of a direct timeline, just all in one little segment here, because I did a lot of rambling during my original video. So the process started in February, late February. On May the 3rd, I was officially inactive with the Department of Education. My offset was June 12th, I had no pending offsets. And on June the 20th, I filed my taxes. And July the 3rd, I got my taxes. So I just kind of want to condense that for you guys in case you missed anything. And just to give you a general idea of how long the process actually took. The last thing I want to leave with you before I ended this video is some important numbers. I am going to put them on the screen, but I also want to read them. So the Department of Education's number is 1-800-621-3115. Again, the Department of Education's number is 1-800-621-3115. That's the Department of Education number. Offset information line is 800-304-3107. And again, that number is 1-800-304-3107. And that is the offset information line. And when I was going through this process, I think I called everybody but the Attorney General of the United States. I'm not even lying. I called a lot of people. So this is the IRS's number. It is 1-800-829-1040, which makes sense. It's a pretty easy number to remember if you think about it with the 1040, because they have the 1040 forms. But it's 800-829-1040, and that is the IRS. Hi guys, this is Lunchtime Liz again. I was just coming to film this outro. Like I said, I was rambling a lot in the first or the original video. So if you know somebody who went through this process, please share this video with them so that they can kind of use it as a guide. I know it took me a minute to figure kind of things out. I just kind of figured it out as I went on. But I do hope that this video helps someone out there. But thank you guys for watching. Again, my name is Lunchtime Liz, and I will see you on the next video.